Hello to anyone watching this video. My name is nsfw, and I don't make a lot of videos, but I'm in the Cookie Run fandom, and if anyone who is active in the Cookie Run fandom has been alive the past few seconds, you would know that there is something kind of big happening. I don't know to the full extent of how big it is, simply because I'm not really active on real social media such as Instagram, Twitter, whatever else, but I am on Discord, and through Discord I learn things. One of those things would be about a series that I had never even heard of, called Cookie Run Kingdomverse, and that is going to be the discussion of this video today. Now, if you don't know what Cookie Run Kingdomverse is, don't worry. I had no idea it existed until now, but apparently it was a popular series made by someone known as Zona. Now, before I get to the video, I would just like to clarify what kind of themes will be discussed. Firstly, there will be a discussion of fetishes and nsfw work. I'm not going to the full extent of her actions, simply because I don't want to get into it for personal reasons. But to just briefly cover that, she exposed children and minors to nsfw content. That's all I will say about that. I won't go into voice actor or professional instances that she had. Just know that she has ripped people off, essentially. I'm not going to get into that at all. However, I will be putting some things in the description that might help. I will also be discussing topics such as proshipping, trauma, and abuse. If any of these themes make you uncomfortable, feel free to click away. This is simply a discussion video. It's nothing serious, and there's already information out there. I'm basically just regurgitating what everyone else is saying. And I will get into why I'm even making this video in the first place later. Anyway, with that out of the way, we can get right into the video. To preface, I will first discuss the characters which are presented in the series, both canon and non-canon. For example, there are two characters, CJ and Oriorca, and that's the first two I will be discussing. Characters such as Coffee Jelly Cookie, CJ, and Oriorca are supposedly adults, but look and act otherwise very typically. They're sophomoric, and they're naive, loud, emotional, and act on impulse, etc., and they overall present themselves in manners which don't indicate adults, or at the very least 39-year-olds. What's worse is what scenarios and situations these characters are put into. Sometimes they're even sexual. And when combined with the fact these characters are being shipped with adults very frequently, it's very concerning and raises huge red flags. For example, there is an instance when CJ is apparently having a panic attack, and Captain Caviar Cookie, seemingly for no reason, kisses CJ while they're having a panic attack. CJ seems to have an issue with lashing out at all the other characters, which in itself as a trait is a decent way to progress plot and whatever else. But the issue is that CJ seemingly spontaneously started crushing on Caviar, and Caviar is the only one that they don't lash out to, and it seems to be romanticized in this way. Also seen by the fact that CJ was either unconscious or panicking when Caviar kissed them, which I don't even know how to explain how that's weird, primarily due to the fact it is romanticized and never talked or discussed it later. Overall, CJ displays obsessive behavior towards Captain Caviar. CJ is not the only character to display obsessive behavior, which ends up seeming glorified, even romanticized. These issues are not presented in a realistic or negative scenario. They are not portrayed as something to stray from, but are instead seeming to be praised, almost. Now to discuss Oriorca Cookie, who looks even younger than CJ does, but is supposed to be an adult and is shipped with Espresso Cookie, who is canonically an adult. Espresso Cookie in the series taught Oriorca how to speak in order to get information from them, and, well, Who else doesn't speak? Let me think about that. Children. Children do not speak. They not only have to have been taught English, which makes Espresso a teacher, but they also act as though they are a child. They look and act as though they are a child. Despite the impression that Espresso is only using Oriorca for information and doesn't treat Oriorca very well, Oriorca has a crush on Espresso immediately. Is there a theme here? Oriorca is even abandoned by Espresso. Yet they're still being shipped. Throughout this episode, Espresso treats Oriorca as if they are a child, which I wouldn't blame him, but also treats him like an animal, even labeling him as one. Characters, as I've implied before, have a tendency to become infatuated with another character and never receive the consequences for leaning on another character so quickly. For example, CJ immediately became infatuated with Captain Caviar, and Oriorca became infatuated with Espresso, even though Espresso is an adult and is a teacher figure. The fact that Zona thought it would be alright to ship a student and a teacher, or what is essentially a teacher and a student, is mind-boggling to me, and I don't know how anyone could even conceive of doing such a thing when one character clearly acts like a child and is only attached for whatever reason. There is even a scene when Espresso is possessed and becomes physically abusive towards Oriorca. Yet again, they are still shipped in a way that just feels so wrong. Characters such as Sticky Date Pudding Cookie also have unhealthy obsessions to the point of serial stalking. The creator has expressed that Sticky Date Pudding should not be left alone with the elder, who he is obsessed with, or else he would reveal his true nature and force himself onto Custard, implying the R word. And it just seems so romanticized. It seems Sticky Date Pudding is not the only character who has a rape fetish. Characters such as Jackfruit Cookie have abused Captain Caviar and even do things on screen with him. The act between Jackfruit and Captain Caviar took place on screen and during the episode. And I don't know how else to say this, but why would this be in a public YouTube video for kids to click on? That's not appropriate at all. Again, it seems so romanticized, and it was likely done simply to place CJ as potentially a better partner for Captain Caviar. Zona is blatantly exposing minors to this content, which is romanticized, teaching them that it's okay. Now to discuss the fetish and nsfw themes, which are presented in the series. I'll start with the mild thing first. In the episode The Candy Gobbler, which was a Halloween special episode, several cookies were possessed by candy-eating ghosts. Their expressions are, needless to say, not appropriate, is just to put it simply. And there is a scene in Secrets of the Duskgloom Sea where an octopus takes and forces Caviar to drink its poison through the mouth by means of tentacle. And out of context, obviously this would seem nsfw because it is. I'm very certain it comes from a place of smut. Not even the main antagonist of the series is free from being sexualized. The lizard is at first seen as a deadly creature, which is fair, I guess, for an antagonist, but as it turns out, this creature cookie thing hunts down cookies to implant its eggs inside of them and use their body as incubators. In itself, this theme, despite being dark, a little too dark for Cookie Run, is not problematic inherently. However, it becomes problematic when it is presented in a sexualized manner. the way it is. CJ's father has become a victim of the lizard, and during this scene, there were squishy sound effects playing, which pretty much confirms how the lizard manages to get its eggs inside hosts. Zona could have had every opportunity to present this in a normal, non-sexualized fashion, but instead chose to go the oviposition route in a series which children can watch. Why? I'm sure that's not the full extent of the series' problematic stuff, but overall, I think that covers major plot points in why people are calling out Zona and whatever else, besides things outside of the series. The reason I wanted to cover this topic is primarily because content like this destroyed me when I was little. I became addicted to this sort of content, and it led me to pornography, essentially. And it was not places I should have been. People like Zona, who encouraged me to these places, romanticized themes, and everything else, led me into darker holes than what I needed to be. You can make dark content, regardless of the fandom, but you cannot romanticize these themes. You cannot expose minors to pornographic content. It leads children to worse things. It leads children into dark places. Personally, I feel as though I have every right to talk about this, because I had to personally deal with what the effects these kinds of things have. And I am not even fully recovered. I still have so much farther to go, and it's been years since I've had to deal with people like this. I just hope Zona realizes what kind of impact she has had on children, unsuspecting children that have no idea what is going to be ahead of them now because they have been destroyed. I have not read or glanced at any of the other victims' statements. I don't really want to know, personally. I don't want to go back into that because Zona reminds me so much of what people I've been around in the past. And I might skim some of it later, but right now I don't think I can deal with that. Not after seeing all these themes and knowing that as a child I would have been drawn to this series. This series would have captured me, and it disgusts me that this was even thought to have been okay. It disgusts me. I understand that Zona might have had issues and is troubled, but I don't care. I literally do not care. I could not care less. That's how much I don't care. Because she is old enough to recognize what effects she has. You know, I think at some point the prefrontal cortex will say something like, you know what, don't do this. This is a bad idea. It's common sense not to put pornographic content in public for children to see, especially when you're an adult. As far as I'm aware, Zona is an adult, and that's mind-boggling to me. This series had time to be produced. Zona at any point could have decided to go against these decisions, but she did not. She continued the product, she posted the series, and now it was on public display. You just can't do these things and get away with it. And I'm glad that Zona is being called out. I wish more people had called out the people who I was associating with before. I'm so glad that people are speaking about these things. It just fills my heart to the brim, if it could be filled at all. Thank you for watching this video, and that's all.